Do we have issues? There we go. There we go. There we go. I hope those brackets are still intact for all of you that are playing March Madness, NCAA men's basketball or women's basketball. I'm sure they've got brackets for those as well. And here we are at the Voice of College Football on a Monday night at 6 o'clock Eastern time on a day that is unlike any other day in NCAA basketball history, with at least recent history, with games being played on Monday. There we go. So welcome in, everyone, for a call-in show on a Monday night. It's going to be a big show. I've got my topic of comparing preseason top 25 polls. Would love to know your thoughts about the rankings. And, of course, ultimately, you produce the show. I don't produce the show. I throw some topics out there, but you produce the show with your comments in the live chat and, of course, your phone calls. Numbers 860-499-3332. We will get that to the screen in just a second, but we got to leave that ticker up for just a few minutes, of course, because it reminds all of you to shop Amazon using the link in the description section of the videos. Go to any of the videos, go to the description section, grab that Amazon link. It's, of course, the link next to the Amazon in the big, bold, capital letters. Keep that link somewhere where you'll remember it, and always use that link when shopping at Amazon. Same shopping experience, doesn't cost you a penny. Again, we're going to run down the 247 Sports Top 25 preseason rankings that came out this past weekend and compare them to the Voice of College Football Way Too Early Top 25. And get your thoughts on which teams are ranked too high, too low, and why, and what rankings mean. They ultimately don't mean anything except for those 13 people that get to run college football. Their rankings mean something. So again, check out the ticker below. Shop Amazon using the link in the description section of the videos. Please contribute to the Voice of College Football. The most effective way to do that is on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. We've got a Patreon page as well. Please check us out there for exclusive live streams, insider look at the Voice of College Football, and also watch parties during the season. We had 3 to 4 watch parties this past college football season, so have a good time joining us for watch parties and exclusive live streams and our predictions as well. They're on Patreon for 16 cents per day. 16 cents per day. And we are offering a free mask for everyone of your favorite college football team. I'm guessing this is going to cover about 95% of you at least. We've got about 35 team masks available. So Kansas State fans, I'm sorry we don't have a mask for you. Stanford fans, I don't believe we've got a mask for you. Army fans, I don't believe we've got a mask for you. So we've got about 35 teams covered. Basically the SEC and the major teams in the other conferences. So please, if you go to voiceofcollegefootball.com, which we want you to go there anyway just to check out our new site. We're excited about it. We hope you are as well. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com and click on the menu bar where it says register for free. And where it says register for free, you know what you do there? You register for free. And that will get you a coupon code for a mask. Then that also gets you 20% off your first purchase. If you so choose to purchase, you don't need to, but 20% off a college football store that's pretty expansive there. Check out the college football gear at the store there. You see that right at the top of the page as well. Store, go to the store and check out the college football gear. And it also puts you in the running for a $25 gift card. So get your free mask. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. We're excited about launching this new site, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Check it out. Of course, like the videos. Before we get entrenched in college football talk tonight, just like the video. Share the videos on social media. If you enjoy the content, the discussion, the debate, and analysis. Even if you don't agree with me, which is fine, don't agree with me. That's why we're here, not to agree on everything. So if you don't agree with me, that's cool. But if you enjoy the debate and discussion, the analysis we provide, my latest analysis was the ACC versus the Big Ten over the past 20 years. Did you check that one out? So we provide our analysis here. So if you enjoy it, others will as well. So please share the videos on social media. And of course, I assume everybody's subscribed. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. And if you're not getting the notifications, please let me know. We were on at noon with Pigskin Pete on his channel. And one of his viewers had mentioned that they got the notification today, but they typically don't. What's the deal with that? I don't completely know what the deal is with that either, but I know that YouTube plays with settings at times and they have to be cleaned up. So let me know if you're not getting the notifications and I will look into that. All right, let's dive into the live chat. And again, shop Amazon. One more reminder before I pull that ticker and go to the call-in number. There it is, 860-499-3332. 860-499-3332. And I'm going to go through my rankings before we get into the chat. So a couple of weeks ago, I released my rankings, my way too early top 25 rankings. With this in mind, keep this in mind. Number one, I'm going to change them, most likely before the season starts. And number two, I don't factor in the schedule. So it's not a prediction. It's a listing of who I believe to be the top 25 teams in the country, and we'll get to the 247 Sports rundown in just a second after I take this call and compare it to mine and compare it to your rankings. All right, let's get right to it. We've got Dominic on the line to talk some college football rankings. Dominic, how we doing? I am doing just fine. We've got a bit of a settings problem on the phone. Give me just a second. We are doing just fine. Did you enjoy the basketball today? Hello, Dominic.
Yes.
Did you enjoy the basketball today?
Oh, yeah, I sure did.
You had yourself a live stream today.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
How'd that go?
What was, I streamed that game earlier today, but I'm not sure which game it was. I think it was, Gonzaga and Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah, Gonzaga and Oklahoma. And I'm pretty sure Gonzaga won that game.
So you did a live stream. You think it was during the Oklahoma Gonzaga game, and then you're not quite sure who won the game.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the college football ranking.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so should we do it from? Can I do the rankings from last season, Mark?
So you want to look at last year's rankings?
Yes.
Okay. Are you just going to read them off for everyone? Why are we looking at them? We can look at them, of course.
No, all right, so let's get into it. So Alabama, so they were number one. I feel like that was a bit too high for them. I feel like they would have ended up at like number 2 or number 3.
So you're talking about after all the games were played and Alabama won the national championship game, that Alabama should not have been ranked to number 1.
Yeah.
You would have ranked them 2 or 3.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. And you would have ranked which team or teams above Alabama?
I would have to say the one team I would do would be the Clemson Tigers.
So you're talking about at the end of last season, you would have ranked Clemson above Alabama.
Yes,
just
Mark,
making
that
sure.
is correct.
Okay. Clemson with 2 losses, Alabama with 0 losses. Clemson having lost to Ohio State by 3 touchdowns, and then Alabama beating Ohio State by 4 touchdowns. Just making sure. Okay.
Where would you rank Alabama? Do you think they should have stayed at number 1? Or do you think they would be at a different number?
And we're talking about the ranking for last season. We're not talking about this season's ranking. We're talking about the final ranking for last year. You're asking me where I would have. I'm just making sure. After much research, debate, probably a sleepless night thinking it over, I think I would have come up with Alabama number. Let me just make sure. Yeah, number 1.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to be the first one on the line, Mark. I hope you have a good show.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a good one.
You too, Mark.
That has to be intentional. It has to be. It has to be. All right, we got Hunter on the line, I believe, to talk some Alabama football. Hunter, how are we doing today?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm good. What's going on?
Good, how are you? That last caller made me scratch my head. I know I'm an Alabama fan and I have an Alabama bias, but I mean, who else are you going to rank number 1? And who can you even make the argument for?
I
mean,
I don't know that there's been a more clear-cut number 1 team in my lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, there's not even an argument for another team. I mean, there's really not. But hey, let's get into this new ranking that they just released. What are your feelings on Alabama being ranked number 2 here?
There's a number of ways to look at it. So, for those people that say Alabama was the national champion last year, they are still loaded with talent despite their personnel losses. They should be ranked preseason number 1 this year. I would have no argument with that type of judgment and that type of approach to it. And a lot of people think that regardless, even after LSU won the national championship and then lost a ton of talent and everyone knew that they wouldn't be nearly as good, there are still people that just believe that the national champion from the previous season should be number 1 preseason the next year. Now, if you take that approach, then you might as well just carbon copy the entire top 25 and just put it into the preseason top 25 of the next year. What I typically do, or what I always do, is take the previous year's performance evaluation, the record, everything involved, and then I determine, okay, what were the personnel losses? What are the personnel gains, whether they be through the transfer portal or through the recruiting class? And then I evaluate the team, and I come out with my top 25. And I had Georgia number 1. But that doesn't mean I'm right. That just means I believe that they, at least to start the season, have the best and most experienced talent coming back. That doesn't mean I'm predicting them to finish number 1. I got to look at the schedule. But anyway, so I'm okay with Alabama number 2, number 1, number 3. I think it's pretty reasonable for them to be anywhere in those general 3 or 4 spots.
Yeah, I assume that tends to. And the only thing I disagree with is I'll put Alabama number 1, Georgia 2, Clemson 3, and Ohio State number 4. That would be how I would rank it. But preseason polls really don't matter.
No, they don't matter at all.
I mean, they're just,
we're just talking about it. They don't matter. Nobody's preseason poll matters.
Let me think to a team who's going to be a force to reckon with. Anybody that plays them next year is A&M. Jimbo has got that team just about where he had at his peak at Florida State. He just about got that at A&M right now. I'm a big Jimbo fan. I like Jimbo. I think he's in my top 5 college coaches in the college football. When he faces Alabama, of course, I hope we destroy him. But overall, I think even this year he's going to give Alabama a run for our money. I think that'll be a lot more difficult game than it has been in the years past. If he's loaded with talent now, and his coaching staff is staying intact for the most part. So I think they're on a way to being a playoff team.
I saw a headline on ESPN.com the other day that said, who is going to be college football's next Clemson? And to me, that means what program that's never been elite is going to be elite. And Texas A&M was the first program that came to mind. They have a national championship winning coach who is doing a great job there thus far in building them into an elite program. They've got a pretty loaded roster. Like you just described, he's getting it just about to the point where he wants it to be. They're loaded with money, facilities, a rabid fan base. They pack in 105,000 people in that place that love their football team. And they're in the state of Texas with all that recruiting talent. The only thing that they need to clean up for this year and figure out is who out of these 3 quarterbacks they're going to select to be their guy. But they're loaded coming back.
Yeah, and I think the only real question with Georgia, can switch it up for just a second, is I think the same question is remaining for Georgia as well. I think Georgia has a quarterback question. Beside their name. I'm assuming it'll be JT Daniels, but we're going to have to see how this team. I think Georgia's defense is going to be elite this year. I think they're going to be a real good team, a defensive team. So I can see them being in a lot of people's top 3. I have no problem with that. I did see where on this little list here that they were talking about Alabama is losing a lot, and we're going to get a lot of kids to the draft, a lot of talent. But from what I've seen in recruiting and just the kids that we have, sophomores and juniors, I think that I don't think we're going to skip too much of a beat. Maybe on offense we have a little bit. We're not going to have, Waddle and Smith there, but we still have some up and coming guys who, at the wide receiver position, are going to be elite guys. I mean, and we have some guys who hadn't gotten their chance to shine yet, and so we're going to see what that looks like come September.
You play 2 teams in the first 3 weeks that are capable teams. They're good teams, but they're not near your status, Miami and Florida. So I believe you're going to be able to take care of them by 15 or 20 points, something in that range, despite the inexperience. And by the time that you play the 2 teams that come to mind that are going to be a real threat, Texas A&M and LSU, I have all the confidence in the world that the offense is going to gel under Bryce Young, that all of that's going to be cleaned up, and they're not going to be freshmen anymore or redshirt. Well, Bryce Young, what did they redshirt him? I know that he played about a game and a half last year, but regardless, he's inexperienced and threw 1 touchdown last year, and that's about it. But I think everything's going to gel, and it's going to be a well-oiled machine by November.
Oh yeah, and another thing, you mentioned it on your show. You did a video on this, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Emmanuel Henderson, the 2022 running back, who's actually from my hometown, and where I live at. And let me tell you this kid, he might be from a small school, but this kid is very, very talented. I'm very excited that Alabama was able to land his commitment. This kid is a special kid, very good guy on and off the field, and I think he's got the capabilities to be a starting kickoff returner and punt returner come when his freshman year.
All right, Hunter. Anything else before I take this next call?
No, I do want to mention that sometimes I get your notifications and sometimes I don't.
Okay.
Today I got it, but there's some other days where I don't even know you're online unless I go to YouTube, like when I'll hit the app, and sometimes it'll have like on my little feed, you'll pop up. But I hit or miss of whether or not I get notifications. So I'm not the only one that's having those kind of issues when getting notifications for your show.
Okay, I'll have to figure out what's going on with that, but I appreciate it. All right, Hunter, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
All right, our next call coming in. Let's see. This is we've got Whole Foods is on the line. Maybe they want to sponsor Whole Foods on Michigan's chances to make an impact. And how about the preseason top 25? All right, you're on with Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark, it's Nate, the Whole Foods Wolverine fan.
Nate, are you calling from Whole Foods itself, or did you take over Whole Foods? Are you now in charge, the CEO?
No, I don't know why that says Whole Foods. It's my it's my phone number, but I don't know why it says that. But
all right,
anyway,
very good.
Yeah, I want to talk about like Michigan's chances to make an impact. Well, to like if Michigan has the capability to, Jim Howard's capability to develop a quarterback like everyone wants to see that, but haven't seen yet. But I think it might happen this year. It might not. I don't know. It depends how Jim Howard if he's going to start the transfer. I don't have I have respect for the transfer. I just don't know what he's going to do. But I want JJ McCarthy to not start, but just to be the backup, because I know he's really good coming in, and yeah, I want Kim McElroy to start the 5 games and then switch to. I wouldn't say switch, but like QB battle with JJ McCarthy. So, I know you don't follow Michigan, but I think you do. You're a voice constable. You do. So, is there any insights of Michigan spring practice yet, or that's my question for you.
So Nate, what I'm hearing is that you want Alan Bowman, the transfer quarterback, to be the starter at the beginning of the season from Texas Tech, and then you would like to see JJ McCarthy eased into the position after about 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not in complete agreement, but I'm not saying that that's not a bad idea, because that's probably the most conventional way to approach it, is that you got this 5-star quarterback, but he's never been on the collegiate field with that kind of competition. You've got an experienced backup coming in. He'll learn the offense in the summer, and you let him start. And then if you think based on how he looks in practice and maybe in some mop-up duty, that JJ's ready by game 5 or 6, that you turn it over to the more talented player. And I think that's a good way to look at it. So the last part of that, what you were asking me, what was your question?
Like, my question is, like, my question was, like, do you have any news of Michigan football if they paused the spring practice? I don't know if they did or not, but I'm not sure.
Oh, you're saying that you heard that they paused spring practice?
No, I'm asking you that. I'm not telling that. I was asking you if they did or not.
The last I checked on College Football News was just a couple hours ago, and there was no report that Michigan had paused spring practice.
Oh, okay. It might have been in the past week, but I don't know. Yeah. One more thing before I go. The preseason top. I'll make it short. Preseason top 15 or top 10.
Okay.
1, of course, Alabama. 2, Clemson coming in. Clemson. Sorry, Ohio State fans, but hey, Ohio State fans, you might like this for me, but you're gonna be third in my poll. You have a lot of talent coming back, I think. And 4th is Oklahoma. 5th, Iowa State. I might be too high on that one, but 6th, OK State, like Oklahoma State. 3, was that on 6? Yeah. 7th, I'll just do 6 because I don't know. But thanks, Mark.
All right, Nate. Appreciate the call. You have a good one.
Yep.
All right. Good call there from Nate the Great. We will move it on to our next call coming in here from, looks like they want to talk a little college basketball and football. This coming in from Steven. All right, Steven, how are we doing tonight?
You're doing good, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was wondering, were you watching Ohio State play against? I can't think of what the team was they played, but they were. I think it was either Oral Roberts. Were you disappointed in how they played, or do you care more about the football aspect than the basketball?
Well, there's no question I care more about the football than the basketball, but I was a pretty strong and pretty ardent Ohio State basketball fan for a good 30 years there, up until maybe about 10 years ago, and it's pretty much dwindled since then to the point where I haven't even watched. I used to watch every Ohio State basketball game on TV. I'd watch every game during the regular season even. To the point where I haven't watched their NCAA tournament games in, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. I did see the second half, I believe, of the Oral Roberts game. But yeah. I wanted Ohio State to win. I can't say that I was devastated or anything. I cared this much, Stephen. I fell asleep sometime in the second half, and I woke up with about 90 seconds left in the game. So I wasn't that much on pins and needles. Yeah.
I was a big basketball fan first, and because my team is Iowa State, and I love watching basketball. But I think for some reason there's been a lot less people watching basketball. Do you think that it's just the way that they have the season set up, or do you think it's just the way that how much they changed the rules of basketball and how the teams are set to where you have the NBA, you have the one and done rule with the NBA, and that's why people are not watching it as much.
So I'm sorry, I didn't get that at the beginning. You're saying that a lot of people are watching basketball now or are not watching college basketball?
Are not watching college basketball. I feel like a lot of them are just watching the March Madness now. Just
Oh,
to
absolutely.
see what the teams are, because I feel like the regular season doesn't seem very important to anybody at the moment.
You're right on the mark.
I think, and I just kind of want to know, do you think it's because of how the rules are set up, or do you think it's because of transfer players, or do you think it's because of how the regular season just doesn't seem to make much of a difference on who makes it?
So I would think that the one and done rule has hurt college basketball more than anything, because that's the evidence. The evidence is that there's always been 64 teams going back to when I think the field expanded, I think around 1981, 82, it was 48 teams and it went to 64 sometime in the early 80s. So we've always had a lot of teams, and you could always finish in 7th place in the ACC or the Big Ten and make the NCAA tournament. So the regular season was always watered down to a certain extent for the really good teams and for the big conferences. So that's always been in play. But I know for myself, when I was watching a lot of college basketball in the 80s and 90s, I knew who everybody was. I could flip on UCLA and Arizona State, and I would know most of the players on the floor. I could flip on a game from the Big Ten, especially, or the SEC or the ACC, and I knew just about everybody on the floor. I could be all over the country watching games. Monday night, I don't know if you know my background, but I worked at ESPN for 19 years. Monday night, Big Monday, was just huge in the ratings for a long time, and just that sequence of, I think it would go Big East, Big 12, and there was a third game. It was a triple header on Big Monday.
Well,
and that was huge.
I would say it'd been the Big 8 before the Big 12, because the Big 8, the Big 12 was formed until 1996.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
So that's my point. Big 8, the Big 12.
Yeah, I know exactly the names of the conferences, but you know what I mean. It's the same conference. Just yes, prior to 1996, it was the Big 8. Yes. So, and Super Tuesday and the college basketball rankings have the TV ratings have plummeted. And that's the only thing I can point to that's changed considerably. Now, sports ratings, TV ratings have dropped across the board. Major League Baseball, they've plummeted. The NBA, they're not what they used to be, but they're still pretty strong. Even the NFL is taking a small hit. So that has something to do with it. Just young people are attracted to other things now with everything that's online versus what they used to be. So that has something to do with it, but it's also the one and done rule. That's the only thing that's changed in college basketball.
When did the one and done rules actually come into effect? Because I feel like it's been around for a long time. I feel like it's been like 15 years now.
Well, to be accurate about it, I wasn't completely accurate there. So there was a time when there was no one and done rule, and players were jumping immediately to the NBA. You know, Moses Malone went straight from high school basketball back in the early 70s to the NBA. But it just wasn't prevalent. And then it started to become more prevalent in the 80s and 90s. And of course, LeBron James jumped straight into the league. So actually the one and done rule was enacted to actually help college basketball. I don't know if that was the impetus or the incentive, but to help college basketball retain some talent. But it's basically just the ability and the opportunity for players to jump all the way to the NBA. has always been there, but they just started to take advantage of it, and it started to hurt college basketball in the 90s.
Yeah. I'm a younger fan, so I probably don't know as much as you do, and so I probably personally didn't really see that, I guess. I mean, until like a couple of years ago, where for Iowa State, we'd have a couple of really good players, but they would only go for a year and then they'd jump. Because most of the teams that Iowa State used to have before, like probably about 8 or 9 years ago, where a lot of them were senior laden teams that stayed around and wanted to improve and wanted to win games. So I kind of now see it now as there's people that want to just make the money as quickly as possible, because that is where they want to go to be able to make a living. Because basketball, there's all these shoe deals, you have all these contracts, and you can go into the NBA pretty easily, depending on whether you want to do. The G League is also a place where you can make money, but it's not as much as the actual NBA. But it's still one of those things that you got to be able to prove yourself that you belong there. And some of the people that are in college basketball come from really, let's say, not really good areas, and they want to provide, and so that they just need the money now. So I just think that it's kind of it's really convoluted so much, because the shoe deals are the things that make people want to jump from college to the NBA, but also I think there's not a lot of I would say, I don't know, it's probably not discipline, but lack of consensus of what they want to do to move forward, I guess. I don't know.
Well, what's unfortunate, the real victim in all this are the basketball players, not the guys that get picked in the first round that sign for millions of dollars, but the idea, the thought, the aspiration for all these players who don't legitimately have a strong opportunity to reach the NBA, but they believe they do. So we've seen, I used to see numbers on this all the time, where the number of players that would leave college early and get drafted versus the ones that actually made themselves eligible and left college early, there's a huge disparity between those two numbers. So basically, you had this thought process from a lot of college basketball players that they were NBA ready, and they weren't. So they were fooled, and it was to their detriment because they didn't continue to work on their skills and get better. I remember when I was covering the SEC and I was covering college basketball, I was having a conversation with Richard Williams, the Mississippi State basketball coach at the time, and we're standing on the court, and it's before one of his team's practices. We're doing an interview, and then we're just talking afterwards, and his team hadn't come on to the court yet to stretch, and he said, we were just talking about, he had just coached the team to the Final Four that had 2 first-round picks, and they went to the league the next year. That was Dante Jones and Eric Dampier. Anyway, and he says, Mark, he says, I've got 12 or 13 players in that locker room, and half of them think that they can play in the NBA. And he said, do you know how many can play in the NBA? He's like, none. None of them are going to play in the NBA, but about half of them, I can't convince them to get their degree, to do the right things, because they think they're going to be in the NBA. He said, I might have one guy who can play in Europe. And he said, but that's the mentality. And they just played with 2 guys who were first round picks. So they think because they played with them that they're going to play in the NBA. And a lot of bad decisions have been made. And fortunately, in the NFL, they counter that by delivering a scouting report and evaluation to the players that they can decide before they become draft eligible. They get a draft grade that comes back from personnel departments across the NFL to say you're basically going to be a first-round pick or a fourth-round pick, or most likely you're not going to get drafted, so that player can make a informed decision.
Do you think there's a way that college basketball can be fixed, or do you think it's just going to keep going downhill because of how quickly people can think they can get in the NBA?
Wow, that's a great question. I am so detached from college basketball. I haven't followed it in forever. I don't think because here's the problem, Stephen, is that what is good for individuals versus what is lawful are two different things. So we can force people to do what is best and wise for them, but there's also freedom of choice in our society. So
yeah,
we can't restrict people from having the opportunity to go earn a living.
Mm-hmm. That I understand that. I'm really curious because I really like college basketball, but I just, for some reason, I'm starting to get disinterested, and I don't want to be disinterested. So I just want to find if there's a way to keep, I want to find a way to keep people interested or be more interested in the season more than just the March Madness.
Yeah, I got to say, Stephen, I used to love college basketball. I've turned on a number of the games over the past 2 weekends. I've not been glued to it. I don't have to watch it. Like, I don't really care if I do or not, but I still, if I've got nothing to do and I'm just working on what I'm doing here with my business, I'll flip it on and I'll enjoy watching the games or watching a few minutes here and there. I think it's still a great tournament. I kind of make fun of it on here just because I'm pushing college football and people call in about basketball, and I just kind of have some fun with that. But I enjoy college football. Basketball, or did at one time, and I would like it to thrive and be healthy. But that's a major flaw in the system. People can't get acquainted with their teams. The quality of play has dropped considerably because players don't stick around, and also and it's got to be it's a very cohesive sport. Obviously, there has to be chemistry. That's why a lot of senior laden teams that are less talented beat more talented teams, just because they're the cohesion. And number two, people like to be part of something, and fans like to know who they're rooting for. They get attached to players.
Yeah.
And you can't get attached watching a player for one season, because most college basketball fans don't watch the first 10 or 12 games because there's still football on. And then after Christmas or New Year's, they start to get into it and watch 15 games, and there's the tournament, and then the kid declares for the NBA and he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think they need to just get rid of the one and done rule and just call it, and just let the players that think they can go to the NBA should go to high school, and the players that don't think they go to the NBA should just go to college. And I think it would solve some of it, but it wouldn't solve the whole issue.
Well, Stephen, I'm not positive about this, but that may have been the NBA stepping in and saying, we're getting inundated with players who think they can play in our league and it would be best for them. Plus it's not helping us. So I think it was a collaboration between it being good for the NCAA, but also good for the NBA to say, hey, let's put a hold on this. These kids can play 1 year of college basketball. So I think they worked together on that. All right, Stephen, appreciate the call.
No problem. Bye-bye.
All right, we got Deandre coming on the line. David, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. David has caught the vision. Ronan has caught the vision. I actually made up a full screen today that I would like to unveil. I'll have to see if I can. That might have to be for our next call-in show. I wanted to really recognize some people that have just contributed to the channel just in an amazing way. But we do have Deandre on the line. And again, David, thank you so much for the super chat. Deandre, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, how you doing today, bro?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I got 3 questions. And I'm going to be scatterbrained for a second because I can't remember the whole conversation. Because the other night when I tried to call you, I was doing work too. So I had to keep cutting off. So you were talking to a Notre Dame fan about joining the Big Ten, I believe, a couple nights ago.
Yes,
Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Okay. So, yeah, all right. So I guess what he was saying is that Notre Dame should join the Big Ten, right? From my understanding, if I'm not
That's my
mistaken.
opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah. But that was your opinion.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I've made this argument to you a lot of times. The population is moving more down south, right?
Yep.
So more of the recruits are down south than it was back in the day in the 60s and 70s,
Sure.
where most of the population is moving up north because of manufacturing and to get away from racism in the south. So let me ask you this. With Phoenix growing so fast and Denver, do you ever see Arizona and Arizona State being empowered? Because in Colorado again, because a lot of the population is moving to that area also. I think Phoenix is the first fastest growing city in America right now.
It's a valid question. I did have somebody tell me the other day that that Arizona does play better high school football than it ever has. I don't know if that's true, accurate, but I did hear that recently, that Arizona's high school football is better than it's been. That would only make sense that no, and of course, California's population has been exploding for decades and decades, but now just here in the last year, I know tons of people are leaving California for various reasons, having to do with the handling of COVID and the inner cities are becoming more slums than they ever have been. Yeah. There's all sorts of issues in California. It's bankrupt. It's still a great destination for weather and things to do, but yeah, the government's bankrupt. So I'm hearing that people are leaving California, but I haven't seen that backed up statistically because it's always been booming. So I don't know if that's just slightly compromising the growth of California, but it would only make sense that where people are moving, that the impact in 15 to 20 years is going to be that the sports is going to get better.
Right. Yeah. My next question. We had talked about Clemson's in the 80s. I think I said for 1977 to 1991. Why was Clemson able to be decent after their penalties compared to SMU after their penalties? Because I'm going to assume that SMU has more money in their booster clubs and how do you say it, in their alumni than Clemson does, because Clemson they don't have oil money like SMU has. So what was the big difference between why was Clemson able to thrive a little bit more than SMU was after their death penalty situation?
Well, the one big difference is the death penalty.
Right. Okay.
So SMU got the death penalty, so they didn't play football for, I'd have to look it up, 2 years? Maybe it was longer than that.
Clemson was on probation too, right? Okay.
But they didn't have a football, like everybody's gone off campus, they don't have a football coach, nothing, zero. So then they had to start off, they had to start from scratch. And just, so I don't know what happened that particular year that they came back. I will be curious to look back into that because I remember it all happening at the time and was on top of it. But I would think that they got some kind of dispensation from the NCAA to say you can recruit, instead of signing the normal class of 20 or 25 players, they may have allowed them to sign more, but they were just all freshmen. And then they were able to get in some transfers, or maybe they just fielded I think they fielded a huge walk-on team. That's what I thought they did. They might have gotten, let's say, a standard 20 or 25 scholarships for their freshman class, but then they had to fill out the entire roster with walk-ons. They were awful for a long time after they came back. So that really set them back.
Okay. Last question. So we talked about you bring up sometimes that Clemson wasn't in 81 before the current run, but that's the only time that they had been to a major bowl. Well, you know, I know we both know they won the major bowls before that, but before all the bowl ties and stuff. So I think this is gonna get a little bit scatterbrained there. So the Orange Bowl, when did Clemson come to tie in with the Citrus Bowl and the Hall of Fame Bowl, the ACC period after that time period? Because it would feel like more independents had their choice to pick, or let's say like I think Michigan played Auburn in the Sugar Bowl, like teams that couldn't go back to the Rose Bowl, so they like the Sugar Bowl took Michigan and they played Auburn one year, or you saw Georgia go play Texas, I think in 81 or 82, somewhere like that. When did the tie-ins come in, and was that one of the reasons why Clemson didn't never go to a bigger bowl after that, up to Dabo's time, or any other ACC school? Because Maryland was pretty good at that time.
You're alluding to 1983. Texas and Georgia played in the Cotton Bowl. Michigan and Auburn played in the Sugar Bowl. Michigan did not win the Big Ten that year. That's why they didn't go to the Rose Bowl.
Right. That's one point. They selected whoever they want to, right?
Yes. The SEC was always, or the Sugar Bowl was always the SEC against an at-large team. The Rose Bowl was, of course, the Big Ten and the Pac-10. And the Cotton Bowl was the Southwest Conference against an at-large team. And the Orange Bowl was the Big Eight and an at-large team.
Yeah, but that's one point. So Clemson couldn't just say we wanted to go. I mean, they couldn't be selected to go to the Orange Bowl because the ACC had tied them into the Hall of Fame Bowl or the Citrus Bowl at that time, or Georgia Tech, even when it was really good in 91.
So I'm trying to keep this straight, that the Tangerine Bowl turned into... Did that turn into the Citrus Bowl or the Hall of Fame Bowl? One of the two. I thought it turned into the Hall of Fame Bowl. And then the Citrus Bowl.
Right.
Oh, shoot. When did the Citrus Bowl start? So the Citrus Bowl is not a very old game. I
think it was 87.
Yeah, no.
So we're looking at one of those.
There was a Citrus Bowl before that. I thought they played, I remember them playing in 84, but it wasn't long before that. So the Citrus Bowl became the ACC championship team played in the Citrus Bowl. Okay, here we go. The Tangerine became the Citrus Bowl in 1983.
Right.
Let me see where I can find the affiliation here. So in 83, it became the Citrus Bowl. And wish it would. It's not telling me when. Oh, conference tie-ins. Here you go. From 68 to 75. Okay, the MAC was involved. Okay. Then from 87 to 91, the bowl featured the ACC champion. So before 87, there was no tie-in between like 75 and 87. And then it became just the ACC. It was only for those 5 seasons that the ACC champion played in the Citrus Bowl, 87 through 91.
Okay, but from, I think, 82, 83, Clemson couldn't go to a bowl. And then 84, 85, they have those are the down years. And then the tie-in would have started, correct? When they started going 10-2.
Yes.
It'll be like 9-2, and So that's what I was asking. You know, I know sometimes some people bring up Clemson lack of going to big-time bowls, and I know they can go to the Peach Bowl, but the Peach Bowl is not as big as it is now because Peach Bowl is affiliated with the college football championship. You know, Clemson go to the Peach Bowl a lot too. So that's why I was asking the question about the lack of the Clemson going to a New Year's Day bowl, far as like the big ones, citrus, cotton, orange, cotton, rose. So, of course, they couldn't go to the rose in the 90s. And the Sugar Bowl, because they won the ACC, they would have been automatically tied in. Then when Florida State came on, there was no other tie-ins. But hey, I'm ready for the season to start. They're talking about Carpenhart showing out down there at defensive tackle. Like I said, we was all waiting for that defensive tackle to come in last year. That defensive line last year, but it didn't come together like it should come this year without COVID. And there's a lot of good teams, a lot of good players out there that we're going to be looking at. But Carpenhart, I heard, has been turning it out there. 6'5", 305. So, man, that defensive line is going to be loaded this year. And these guys live up to their potential. I can't wait for that first game against Georgia. It's going to be now. I'm thinking about going, but I'm really not a big. I really don't like. I'm so big. I don't like sitting in all those seats. So I doubt I'll go. I better watch it at home, and you can walk peacefully back to the car.
There
you don't have to listen to nobody say, "Y'all lost." Yes, sir. Well, Mark, man, thank you for as always. I just had those couple of questions. There was some more that I had, but I can't. When y'all caught my attention, and I know y'all were just talking about Notre Dame. Why would they join the ACC? And over the Big Ten, the Big Ten never wanted Notre Dame, which that's why Notre Dame started playing everybody. But I know Notre Dame always used the excuse that they want to play in California and Stanford. In California every year, either Southern Cal or Stanford, and that's one of the main reasons why they always say they didn't want to go. 'Cause I think the TV money in the ACC is better than the TV money in the Big Ten that Notre Dame has with their current contract with NBC. So we'll see if that changes over the years. Well, Mark, you have a great day, man. I keep listening to the show, and I thank you for all you do for us.
Appreciate that, Deandre. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Oh, always, Mark. I got to support my man.
You have a good night, man. Appreciate that.
All right, man.
All right. Numbers 860-499-3332. It's at the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. All right. Our lines are open. And I was going to run down the 247 Sports Top 25 that came out over the weekend. So this is what they've got. Here we go. 247 Sports released its preseason top 25 rankings. They've got Northwestern at 25. Northwestern finished in the top 10 in the country last year. What you've got next to that is where I have that particular team ranked in my way too early top 25 that I discussed here on a live stream about 2 weeks ago. So 247 Sports with Northwestern at 25. I've got them unranked. They've got Ole Miss at 24. I've got the Rebels at 19. 247 Sports with Miami at 23. I've got the Canes at 14. So those Miami fans who say I'm a Miami hater from time to time, I've got them at 14. All right. USC at 22. I've got the Trojans at 10. All right. Utah 21. I don't have the Utes ranked. Charlie Brewer taking over there at quarterback for Jake Bentley. Iowa at number 20 in the 247 Sports rankings. I've got the Hawkeyes at 11. Then we've got Minnesota at 19. I don't have the Gophers ranked. Cincinnati's at 18. I've got them at 17. So we're pretty much dead even on that one. Washington at 17 after a 3-1 season. And I've got the Huskies unranked coming in. They've got Michigan in week 1. Penn State at number 16. And I've got the Nittany Lions at 21. Iowa State coming off a trip to the Big 12 championship game and a Fiesta Bowl win are ranked number 15. And the Cyclones are loaded Brock Purdy's back at quarterback. Breece Hall at running back. Xavier Hutchinson at wide receiver. Charlie Kohler, one of the best tight ends in college football, is back. The offensive line is generally back. The defense, led by Mike Rose, back. And Isheem Young is one of the better defensive backs in the Big 12. He's back. And I've got Iowa State at 7. So Texas ranked one spot ahead of Iowa State in the 247 Sports ranking. Seems a bit curious. Longhorns at 14, losing Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. Casey Thompson seems to be the one that's going to win the job over Hudson Card, most likely. I've got the Horns at 15. 247 Sports likes Michigan at 13. I've got the Wolverines unranked. Notre Dame at 12. I've got the Irish at 9. Of course, they've got to replace Ian Book. Most notably at quarterback, Jack Cohn coming in from Wisconsin. Speaking of which, the Badgers at 11. I've got Bucky Badger at 13 with Graham Mertz at quarterback. LSU at number 10, according to 247 Sports. I've got the Tigers at 20. Oregon at number 9. I've got the Ducks at 12, coming off a 4-3 season. Here's a huge disparity. Florida at number 8 in the country. According to 247 Sports, I've got the Gators at 25. I'm not seeing that with the offensive overhaul, and the defense was a mess last year. North Carolina at 7. I've got the Tar Heels at 8. 247 Sports with Texas A&M at 6. I've got the Aggies right there at 6. Georgia's at number 5. I've got the Bulldogs. Whoa, number 1. Ohio State at 4, according to 247 Sports. I've got the Buckeyes at 5. Of course, I'm a homer. I've got them one spot lower. Oklahoma at 3. I've got the Sooners at 4. Alabama at number 2. I've got Alabama at number 2. And finally there, again, Georgia at number 5 for 247 Sports. I've got the Bulldogs at 1. I've got Clemson at 3. And 247 Sports likes the Tigers to finish number 1. I will have my final rankings out before the season starts. That's just a quick look before spring practice. And then once we get through spring practice, I'm going to unleash on player rankings. I've got to get some kind of evaluation from these spring practices and spring games, even though it's difficult to get information that means anything out of these spring practices, or certainly the spring games are difficult to evaluate as well. But still, it being what it is, I at least want spring practice to play out, and then I'm going to rank the players in the country. Top 5 in every top 5 at the various conferences, and top 10 in the country. So, for example, ACC, top 5 quarterbacks, top 5 running backs, top 5 offensive linemen, etc. And then we will hit up the top 10 in the country. Do we have some updated info on Deshaun Watson? Frank Bibbs is telling us that Derek Wingo, playing linebacker, of course, at Florida, going to be a beast there. We've talked him up a little bit. All right, folks, the phone lines are open, 860-499-3332. Of course, shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section of any of the videos. Helps us build the channel. It's the same exact shopping experience. Doesn't change whatsoever. So what do you typically do to go on Amazon and shop for items? Do the same thing. Just use my link. If you use my link, same deal. Doesn't cost you a penny. Helps us build the channel. All right. Got a call coming in here at the Voice of College Football. Yes. Who's on the line?
Kevin, Dallas, Georgia. How you doing today?
Oh, there's Kevin. I'm doing well. What's going on tonight?
Well, just wanted to revisit something we spoke about, I guess, 100 years ago, and it was in regards to the super conferences. And I was wondering whether that is over the horizon or so far that you couldn't see it with a doggone, as far as one of those telescopes looking to the universe, as far as the 4-16-team conference.
So what are you looking for me to do? Whether this is a possibility for the future or what my 4-16-team conferences would be?
Well, firstly, as far as whether, because I thought that was something that was talked about before, but it seemed like for whatever reason it was brought up. Then after it was brought up as far as those that sit in cigar smoke rooms, and then after it was brought up, then it hasn't been talked about. So I was wondering, as far as, are we looking at, say, maybe, I don't know, within the next decade or not at all? And then also as far as how you feel about it, as far as those. Well, I take that back. I feel that I know how you feel about it, but as far as those, quote, other people, as far as how far you think that that's off the radar.
Well, if you go back 3 or 4 decades, these conferences were 10 at the most. There was a Pac-8 at one time. There was a Big 8 at one time. There was a Southwestern Conference with 8 or 9 teams. These conferences were small. The SEC had 10. The Big 10 had 10, of course. And they've done nothing but add on and take from other conferences. So I think I think that there was some valid talk, meaning talk coming from people that could actually have an influence on the situation, that was starting to drive that 16-team model. But it was also just coming from the sheer fact that people were looking at the tea leaves and seeing, well, if the Big Ten is going to 14 teams and the ACC and the SEC, these conferences are just getting larger and they're just swallowing up the smaller conferences, and anybody that can possibly help them from a monetary standpoint, they're going to bring them in. So for it to be uniform, why don't we go to 16-team conferences? But that was on a roll there for 3 or 4 years when Nebraska left and Missouri and Texas A&M moved, and all those moves were within 3 to 4 years. Colorado, Utah, Maryland, Rutgers, that all happened between 2010 and 14. And then it just stopped because we got to a point where who's going to be the next team to move? Where does it financially make sense for a conference to try to add on? And so I don't know what would be the next move to make. It would be most beneficial for the Pac-12 to do something because they're in the worst position, but they can't go west. They fall in the ocean. So they can only look to so many places to find a football program that's going to help them. And for as good as Boise State is on the field, I don't think they really help them. And BYU, I think there could be some issues politically there as well. Otherwise, I think. Yes, sir.
I'm listening, Mark. I'm listening.
Well, so of course Notre Dame should join a conference. I thought by them joining the ACC for 1 year that there might be some real talk about them moving in there for good. Yeah, there are some Group of Five schools like Cincinnati that play, or at least have shown that they can play good enough football to join. But where are they going to join? And then you bring other. I think the only stopping point is academics with some of these conferences, the Big Ten in particular, with bringing in a Cincinnati or somebody like that. But yeah, I don't have a real good feel for where this is going to go. It's going to happen eventually somewhere, and then when it happens once, it creates the domino effect. So there's typically not just one move, unless somebody scarfs up an independent, like a BYU goes to the Pac-12, but then they don't want an odd number of teams, so they would have to scarf up somebody else, and that would most likely be Boise State. I certainly have my realignment plan, which would involve 12 teams. I don't like 16 teams for one simple reason, that they don't play each other. There are not enough games on the schedule for them to play each other. So the issue that we already have about teams not seeing each other enough becomes even more of an issue. You're going to have teams that are never going to see each other for 8 or 9 years.
Well, as you were speaking, Mark, I was going in two different directions. I thought, as far as that the other shoe to drop, as far as to, as you would so eloquently say, that feeding frenzy would be if Oklahoma and or Texas were to seek another conference. I think that if that were to happen, then it would be a free for all then. And then when it comes to Notre Dame, for whatever reason, I guess when I was younger, Mark, I was always wanted to be as far as a progressive thinker. But then when I think about it as far as football history, Notre Dame just to me don't fit in the ACC. It seems like the most logical fit to me would be Notre Dame as far as in the Big 10/Big 12.
Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten from a football standpoint. I don't even think that's an argument. I don't even think it's a debate. Geographically, they're smack dab in the middle of Indiana. They are surrounded by the Big Ten. From a history standpoint, they have their rivalries. Now, of course, they've got a great rivalry with USC, but they're not going to be in the Pac-12. They're a zillion miles away. Their meaningful history is with the Big Ten, is with Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue. That's who they used to play up until 5, 6, 8 years ago. They played those three schools every year. So they had strong ties to the Big Ten. They've played long series against Penn State in particular. They've played Northwestern fairly regularly, Ohio State at times. But I only speak from a football standpoint. That's the only way I look at it. But I would think that they would fit in, unless there's something I'm not aware of, some type of, field hockey situation that nobody cares about. But they would fit in all the other meaningful sports with the Big Ten as well. I just think there's bad blood there from a long time ago. I don't necessarily understand it. And unless Notre Dame really, somebody outlined this, that, and Deandre, the last caller, alluded to it, and I don't remember which conversation this was, that Notre Dame would want to join the ACC if they were forced to because of the recruiting footprint, that it would make more sense, that they would get better talent out of the ACC territory.
Well, that would be a good move, but then if this, in which I don't understand this, and in regards to this, Notre Dame having such a high academic standard, it is as though whenever I hear that, Mark, it is as though at every other institution and in every other conference that they're just giving away degrees as though it's buy one get one free degree. And so that's the thing that just kind of, and that's the reason why I look at Notre Dame the way I look at it, Mark, is it's one thing if you're on a high horse, but then you're on a high horse, you have your nose pointed up in the air to everyone, and then you're telling everyone as though we're living in Victorian France, let them eat cake. And so that's the reason why I have this at times conniption when it comes to Notre Dame, Mark.
Well, Kevin, this is the kind of information I would love to have us be privy to, because we hear this all the time. And we hear it out of the Vanderbilts and the Northwesterns, but they don't complain about it. They just live in a different academic universe to a certain extent and have more difficult standards. But we hear it more from Notre Dame because I guess they're trying to compete for national championships, but make excuses that their academic standards are too tough. So it excuses when they fall short. But at the same time, I would love to know, because they're still recruiting top 10 classes, what players out there do they want to sign from a football standpoint? Are they not able to sign because of their high academic standards? Who are these players? I would like to know who they are.
Well, Mark, due to privacy rules, we cannot disclose as far as the names of those players.
Would love to know who they're bypassing and thinking, man, we would love to go grab that number 3 rated wide receiver in the country, but we don't think he's going to qualify. But he's going to qualify at Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma.
But if you look over the history of the program, there's only been one person that they put on, for lack of a better way to say it, Front Street when it came to his academic credentials that actually helped them win a national championship, and that's Tony Rice. Now, they will utilize him to be the poster child as far as, okay, we allowed this person with certain academic standings to come into our institution. He grew not only as far as a student, but he grew as far as an athlete and assisted us as far as winning a national championship. That's the only person I've heard in 100 years, Mark.
I think even a number of people have admitted that their football academic standards are different than the student body's academic standards. And that may be common to all football programs. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I would love to have that information. I would love to know who Notre Dame that they are still able, despite their academic challenges, still able to bring in top 10 recruiting classes, but they would just be that much better if they could go after this guy, and that guy, but their academic standards are just too high. If their academic standards are that high, then they couldn't bring in all those excellent football players. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, once again, Mark, I'm asking you to do something that when it comes to this particular issue that you shouldn't, and that's to think with a rational mind. So let's put that on the back burner, and I promise I will never call your show again and go on a Notre Dame rant in reference to holier than thou academic standards. Briefly, as far as what is played on the field, and that is, when I look at the top 4, I feel that as far as when it comes to University of Alabama, as well as to a lesser degree, well, I take it back, I'm not going to say a lesser degree, Georgia. And in order for those two to win a national championship, I think they're going to have to lean real hard the first half of the season. And I would say when the chips are, chips on the table on their defense. Now, when it comes to, say, Oklahoma, I think that they will lean, if I had to give a percentage, I'm thinking it's going to be more so 70 to 80% as far as on the offense, that other, 20 to 30% on the defense. And then when it comes to Ohio State, for the first time in 100 years, Mark, I have to say that I'm just kind of, as far as when it comes to as far as talent, I would say A1. But it's just, to me, it's just so many unknowns, because you're going to have, freshmen in some cases and sophomores that's going to have to be on the front line instead of the reserves. But then on the other hand, prayerfully, COVID will not, be the way that it was as far as this past season. And so with these, quote, exhibitions, it will give the opportunity as far as for all those top 4 teams to get those true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, et cetera, seasons, so they can get ready as far as when conference championships come around, as well as when the Final Four come around, that, hey, when injuries, bring about attrition, and that being the case, hey, that next man up mentality. So I'm just, would like to know as far as how you feel about as far as those two SEC powers, as far as being more so steered as far as that defense initially, and maybe even because when I look at both of them, I'm thinking more so with Alabama, Mark, that team that Jalen was the fourth string quarterback for. As in, this what this Alabama team reminds me of defensively. Because defensively, I look at this team as being 2-3 deep, minimum. So, and I just wonder as far as whether there's any rationale as far as drawing a parallel between that Jalen team and this Bryce Young / Paul Tyson team for 21-22.
We've got our boy Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama coming on tomorrow. I think that it's impossible, nearly impossible. As soon as I say something's impossible for Nick Saban, I should just shut my mouth. It seems nearly impossible that they're going to be able to maintain that type of offensive efficiency and explosiveness that they achieved last year with a first-time starting quarterback. But really, how much better was Alabama than everybody last year? Decidedly. I truly don't think if they stepped on the field with Ohio State for 10 games that they would have beaten them every time like they did, but they were still clearly better. And Ohio State pretty much showed that they were better than Clemson. So Alabama was that much better than everybody else already. I think they can drop off. I think that they can become almost human on offense, but still really, really good. And it's going to be enough. And I'm going to say the same about Ohio State and Alabama, that I think they're so much better, especially Ohio State, than the rest of the conference, that Ohio State, instead of beating teams 42-10 throughout their Big Ten schedule, might be winning those games more like 35-21. But in the process, by game 9, game 10, game 11, that they'll have a well-gelled offense. And that quarterback, they've got 3 of them to choose from. And they're all super talented, that by the time we get to game 10 or 11, if they've chosen the right one and he's developed, and if he hasn't developed, he's going to be on the bench by week 3, and they'll bring another one in, that they'll have their right guy on the field and have him developed to where they're humming along pretty well at that point. So I think Ohio State can capitalize on, I don't want to say a weak schedule, but a Big Ten that they are 2 touchdowns better than across the board, even with inexperience, and that Alabama, to a similar degree, is facing 2 pretty good teams out of the first 3 weeks, Miami and Florida, but not so good that they should be taken to the wire. And by the time they see LSU and Texas A&M, I think Bryce Young and that offense is going to be pretty special.
Well, I'm feeling the same way, Mark. I mean, it's been a long time coming. Not long time, but when it comes to University of Alabama, it's truly cyclical, because you're looking at it normally as far as this year would be the growing pain year. So sad to say, for us, but not for as far as for I guess the other 49 states, say 10+1, 11+1. But then as far as by maybe that second year, it should be more so, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say given that, as far as, okay, we're not going pins and needles as far as possibly winning. But, when it comes to the, as far as this upcoming season, it's going to be interesting. It's truly, anyone's ball game. But I still, just feel that as far as the defense will, more than at any other year, will serve as a catalyst when it comes to even, I would say, I'm thinking maybe 50-40. I'd take 55-45 as far as Clemson in reference to, DJ, pretty much, because I'm not, truly sold on their defense. So You're looking at maybe Oklahoma. I would give maybe them a slight edge over Clemson as far as offensively. Georgia maybe a slight edge as far as just when it comes to the quarterback as in having in-game experience. But it's interesting. It's interesting, Mark. I'm looking forward to a good season, and prayerfully, hey, we can have as far as those quotes, as some would say, cupcake games, so that everyone can get that experience, because I think that hurt as far as hurt. It hurt as far as every school as far as last year. And one last question I have for you, Mark, and that would be in reference to leadership when it comes to programs. And I was wondering, as far as how do you feel that leadership or the lack thereof may have hurt LSU last year, and leadership as far as what may have assisted as far as University of Alabama to have the season that they had this past season?
That's a great question, because when I think about what I've heard out of the mouths of Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, and other top coaches, they talk about, of course, they're in the business of leadership, but what they are able to do is to be able to find not just talented football players, but to be able to find alpha dogs that are natural leaders, and then be able to kind of extend or by extension lead the locker room through those guys, and those guys become and all the great teams that become great teams. Part of that component is the leadership on the team, not just from the coaches, but the leadership becomes more where they kind of self-manage and police themselves, because they want to win that badly, and they've got that strong a leadership in the locker room where that is developed. And I think that's another extension of the brilliance of Saban in particular, and a few others, is that they're not only great leaders themselves, but they develop great leaders on the team. And so they basically get to a place where they're able to say, it's your team, and they get that kind of buy-in from the alpha dogs in the room, to where they're saying, you need to police your team. You need to make sure that this crap doesn't go on, that these guys are focused on winning and doing the right things off the field to make sure that the winning's not compromised and all that. A truly great leader is not just a great leader himself, but he's able to develop others into great leaders. And I think that's what Saban does on the coaching staff, because look at how many top line coaches he produces, but also at the player level. And so LSU, Ed Ogeron, I've got a lot of respect for him. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's at that level to where he's really either thinking that through or capable of that type of, that's doctorate level coaching right there.
Indeed. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, in reference to, as far as you could look at, as far as when it comes to the two, it's like comparing apples and oranges as far as the two, because the one thing when I look at Saban is that every 3 years or every 4 years it's been a matter of change. Not only as far as the staff, but also as far as analysts. And see, I've only been aware of analysts, Mark, and I'll just be honest with you, as far as analysts, since Saban's been there. And then initially it got to the point where Saban had too many analysts, and they stated, hey, you can only have X amount of analysts. And even when it came to the analysts, he was getting high school coaches from, say, hotbeds as far as in his recruiting footprint to be an analyst, so that, hey, 3-4 years down the road, okay, I have inroads at this school, inroads at that school. And, I think that the telling thing as far as going into the 21 season was the BLM, as far as the Black Lives Matter movement, and how Saban stepped to the fore as far as at Alabama. And although you had alumni and you also had fans that were not pro for it, he dug his heels in the ground and he went forward, and they had a successful season. Now, was it the overriding thing? Probably not. But I do feel that it had some difference. But then if you go westward, as far as Baton Rouge, Mark, should the doggone players met with the president in reference to it, and Ogeron didn't even know until they received a call from the president asking, "Do you know where your players are?" "No, I don't." Well, they're up here talking to me about what's affecting them, and why don't you, A, why aren't you here, and B, why don't you know that they are here? So that's the thing that just kind of made me lose a little respect for him as far as that disconnect, and I just really couldn't understand as far as you quote the CEO of an institute, well, as far as of a program, and there being a disconnect.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's definitely a good point. All right, Kevin, going to take this
again,
other call.
Mark, thank you for indulging me. You take care, and hey, look forward to talking with you soon.
Appreciate that. Have a good night.
Hey, you do likewise.
All right, we got Reasonable Gump coming on the line. He's going to give us some classwork on leadership here. Reasonable Gump, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, I was listening to you and that last caller and your last subject there. I thought I'd chime in on it. First of all, if he's still listening, I'd like to make a request that he come back on and do an Ed Orgeron voice at some point, because he just sounds like he could do a great one.
Yeah, if he really put his, he's got some pipes. He's got the lower register down that I don't. That's for sure.
When he was recounting that story about how Ed Orgeron got a call from the president asking if he knew where his players were, I could just picture him doing, I don't know.
I don't know.
But,
yeah.
But anyway, Mark, so I wanted to ask you something. How do you think, or have you ever thought about the way leadership or lack thereof has handicapped some programs that really should be doing more than they are? Like, for example, basically, so like Michigan or Georgia, or even to some lesser degree Miami, like they seem to be usually not performing to what their talent level would indicate. Georgia's won the last 5 off-season national titles in a row. It's a dynasty you and I can't even fathom, that kind of greatness. But they can't get it done in the real, when we actually play the games. And then there's the issues of you have, I'm just going to stay on Georgia because I know them the best, but they seem to have a very bad case of players opting out all the time. Hell, they even had one opt out 2 weeks before the season started last year. And then they have a bad case of it when it comes to bowl games as well.
I'm quickly
and then you
becoming
look at a program.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to use like Alabama as a counterpoint. We had players who were injured, who were on shaky legs, who had just had surgeries, who were desperate to get in and play a down or two in the national title. And someone would say, well, you're in the playoffs all the time. That's different. Okay. We were hardly plagued at all with opt-outs when we played Michigan. Our top receivers played that game, and they could have easily gone in the first round without playing the game. So I'm wondering, do you think leadership, and as an slight extension of that, culture, like how much do you think plays a role in how successful your team or your program is?
Well, I think aside from, so we assume that everybody knows how to coach football. Just about everybody in the country. Now, certainly there are some better than others, of course. But we know that everybody can draw up the X's and O's across the country. Some are brilliant, but they're all capable, or they wouldn't be where they are. We know that all the schools that you just named some may have some resources that others don't, but it's pretty fair competition when it comes to money and facilities and resources. I think leadership is huge. It's tough to detail. It's tough to explain. It's tough to pinpoint. You kind of know it when you see it. But I'm going to put Georgia. Maybe I'm becoming a bit of a Georgia apologist. I always feel like I'm defending Georgia for some reason, but I would put them in a bit of a different category. They're failing to get over the hump. They're they came within a whisker of winning a national championship. So they did everything right that season, except one guy blew a coverage near the end of the game or at the end of the game. So I kind of put that in a different category than just failing, than just being Texas for 10 years and going 7-5, 7-5, 5-7, 7-5 over and over and over. I kind of put those in different, Georgia's playing good football. They're playing really well. They're just running into LSU and Alabama. And that doesn't excuse it. They need to get it done. Kirby Smart needs to get it done. But I kind of put them in a different category. Miami's underachieving, Texas, USC, Michigan now.
I guess the reason I talk about Georgia a bit more is again I know them. I know the program a little bit more, but okay. For example, you watch that disaster that was a Florida and Oklahoma game, and you remember like toward the beginning, they had that guy Kyle Pitts who dined himself worthy enough to show his face in the game wishing his players luck, even though, and like pretending that he's not even part of the team anymore, which I guess at that point he wasn't. That kind of stuff really rubs me the wrong way. And then I look over here at Georgia, and like that game, that Texas game a few years back, where they had so many people decide not to play the bowl game, and texting on and tweeting out that they thought they deserved to be in the playoffs at the same time. And what does their coaching staff do? They put them on the bus and bring them to the bowl game with them. They're not dressed out, they're not in pads or anything, but they still bring them and let them be on the sideline next to the players who are out there getting hit, roughing it, playing, trying to win. I look at that, and then every year after that, it's the same thing. They have more opt-outs against Baylor. They have more opt-outs, and they almost lost to Cincinnati. Quite frankly, they should have lost. And it's that kind of thing where I'm just like that. This has to be coaching. This has to be the culture that you're not setting at your program.
Well, you're bringing so many things to mind.
Because that really should be happening.
Yeah. You bring a lot of things to mind based on my own experience in having to be a leader. Not that I was good or great or whatever I was, but just leadership positions that I've had versus also just observing other leaders for a long time in corporate life and otherwise, and then observing all these situations that you're talking about. And I think there's a few components here. Is to sell a locker room full of football players, I think number one, they need to know that you know what you're doing. Like if they sense any incompetency, then you lost them. So, but again, that should be covered. I would think that this guy knows football. He knows what he's doing. Okay, number two, that you care about them, that they're not just a commodity. They're just not a piece of meat, and you just don't want them, as long as they can run a 4-3 and they're going to, execute the block. That's all you care about, is that they win games. You have to connect with them in some way to let them know that you care about them as people, and we're doing all this together. They're part of the greater good. And as long as you give me your all, I'm going to give you my all. And I'm going to see that you reach your potential, whether that's to just be a good football player and seize this opportunity to get a degree, or whether that's to be an NFL player. Whatever it is, I'm looking out for you. And if you bust your tail for me, I'm showing you that I care about you, and I'm going to make your life better. And I think people like to be listened to. That's what I would hear all the time when I was in leadership positions. And I never thought it was, let's see, leadership can be extremely hard. I don't want to lessen it at all, but certain tenets aren't difficult. Listen to people, tell them the truth. When you can't tell them the truth, you tell them why you can't tell them something. You tell them this is confidential and this is the reason why. I can't tell you this right now, but I will. This is the reason, because these people need to know it or figure it out first, and then we'll tell you. But tell them the truth. Let them know that you're actually listening to them and you value what they have to say. When you give them an answer, tell them the reason why. Okay, I'm telling you no, but it's for this reason, or I'm going to tell you yes, and follow through with what you're telling them. Just don't give them an answer. This is another thing I ran into a zillion times, is people giving people answers just to appease them, to say, we're going to do this. Yeah, your idea is a great one, and we're going to build a project and do exactly what you want. And then it would never happen. No, follow through on what you tell them you're going to do. There's just some simple tenets to leadership that I think people respond well to if they know, and then they see you be accountable to that. So those
are all great points.
So that's what guys like Saban must be expert at, and a whole slew of other things.
Yeah. I mean, again, Alabama was barely affected at all by players deciding, or by not being able to be motivated to play against Michigan when they couldn't make the playoffs that one year. Maybe that was an anomaly. I don't know. Only have one case study for it. But I just, right now, when I look at Alabama's culture, I don't think if we lose 2 games next year and we don't make the playoffs, I still think Nick Saban's going to be able to keep just about his entire team on the field for the bowl game. And I just think that just reflects the kind of culture he's managed to put in there, which, I think that's evidenced by the way Alabama mastered the 2020 season with all its weird faults, which is actually going to bring me to another question kind of within this subtopic here. A lot of people are floating around that this should just be a one-off season. You should just throw it away. We shouldn't judge anyone for it. It's a COVID year. No one knew how to handle it. Well, that's not entirely true. There's plenty of programs who did know how to handle it and handled it pretty well. All the playoff teams handled it remarkably well. And then there's plenty of programs who didn't make the playoffs who handled the year very well. I personally don't think James Franklin and Penn State deserve a pass just because it's a COVID year. I don't think Jim Harbaugh deserves a pass. I don't think Jeremy Pruitt deserved a pass. I don't think Will Muschamp deserved a pass. I don't think because you can't tell me that we just have to blame coronavirus on everything, and we can all just forget it happened. When I have plenty of teams over here who handled it just fine. I mean, Ohio State had COVID issues, but they still got to the playoffs and they smoked the first team they played. Clemson had a couple COVID cases, but for the most part, they kept it clean. Alabama had 1 case the entire year, and it wasn't even a player. And then Georgia handled their, they didn't have any COVID trouble. It was obviously doable if you had a competent staff running it. So I just want to know what your feelings on it. Do we just give people a pass because of the quote COVID year, or do you think that no, we need to measure everyone by the same bar?
Well, I think generally we need to measure everyone based on whatever their performance was, that they all played under the same. Generally, of course, there were hot spots in the country, and if you want to take it more to a microscopic look, there would be more hot spots on certain campuses than others. So, we don't have the granular information to know exactly, but they were all generally dealing with the same situation. I would say that the teams in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 were working from a little bit different or more difficult of a situation because of the lack of direction and expedient direction from their conferences. So they were behind it from that standpoint in getting on the field later and having indecision from the top, where shoot, if you want to take the Big Ten, for example, they were almost steered by the schools more so than ultimately the Big Ten steering the schools. Ohio State, number one, and Nebraska and others almost forced the Big Ten to play and made the decision for the Big Ten. When I said, it may have come out of my mouth at some point that I was giving Penn State a pass for this. I hope I didn't say it that way. I didn't mean it that way. I meant it more like,
no, you didn't. I never heard you say that. There's just a lot of people that do.
Yeah. So if for example, like I've got Penn State in my preseason top 25, I'm not giving them a pass for going 4-5. I'm basically saying I'm not giving that as much weight as I typically would any other season. Like, I think they're going to rebound. That has nothing to do with how they handled the COVID situation, but that I just think that their program's better than what they showed last year.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's fair. And one last question, still within the whole subtopic here. Just your opinion. I've watched a couple of your talks with Juan at LSU Odyssey, and I'm just curious of how you really feel about this. So I actually am on video record in the YouTube archives for predicting that Ed Orgeron was going to be great at LSU. When he was hired, everyone thought he was just going to be fired immediately, or the interim, that he didn't know what he was doing, or he's in over his head, or stuff, just because he had a bad record at Ole Miss.
And you thought that why?
Bad record.
And you thought that why?
I will tell you, because there was not a single person in this entire country more passionate about his job than Ed Orgeron. He had experience. Yeah, he learned what not to do at Ole Miss. Apparently the USC players actually wanted to keep him when he was the interim over there. And then he came to LSU, and he's a born and bred swamp man out of, Baton Rouge. I knew he was going to put everything, all his heart and soul into that job. I didn't predict he'd win a national title, but I did predict he would be successful on a Les Miles kind of caliber. So he obviously exceeded my expectations, but I am on record for predicting that. That all being said, this last year, calling this past year a dumpster fire would be an insult to both dumpsters and fires. Coming off one of the best national title, actually the best until 1 year later, national title team ever, to go out and just get skunked by Mike Leach, Mississippi State, the first game of the season, and then the rest is history. Do you think this was a one-off? Do you think he caught lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, and that LSU is going to go back to 9 or 10 wins a year? Or do you think that they had just lost so many players, then COVID happened, then they made the worst hire and defensive coordinator in history in Bo Pelini? They're going to take care of all that, and they're going to come back to competing for the West again. Like, which are you leaning towards?
Yes and no. Is what I'm leaning toward is that Ed Orgeron is a capable coach. I think he's really good. I don't think he's one of the best. So I think he's a leader of men. I think he has certain qualities, and I don't want this to be misconstrued in any way, because I'm not talking about character. I think he has certain qualities that are similar to Les Miles. The players love Les Miles. The players love Ed Orgeron. And so they play for him. And I think their mass of especially defensive talent, I think they're going to have a really good defense this year in particular. I think just the compilation of talent, they're recruiting amidst all this mess off the field, And I know it's really early, but we know it's LSU, so it's going to hold to some degree. Again, if the NCAA is really hard on them, maybe it comes apart to a certain extent. But right now, they've got like the second-rated class in the country for 22, and they had a great class last year. I think they're going to be the Les Miles / Ed Ogeron pre-2019 LSU. I think they caught lightning in the bottle with the quarterback combination with the offensive. What was he? Analyst. He wasn't the offensive coordinator by title.
He wasn't even the coordinator,
but
right?
Brady. That they caught lightning in the bottle there. And I think Ogeron's going to be able to develop a better passing offense than Les Miles, but that's not hard to do. Why Les Miles could never get the right people on his staff to figure that when you've got every resource at your disposal to go hire whomever, you're allowed to pay assistant coaches as much as anybody in the country. Everything LSU wants to win as badly as anybody, maybe too badly, but that he can't say, you know what, we're great everywhere, but we don't have a quarterback or a guy that can teach him how to be an even better quarterback. So let's go fix that, and we should be going 11-1 or 12-0 every year. But Les Miles wasn't. Maybe he was too proud, too arrogant to do that. I don't know what the problem was. But Ed Ogeron has
pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, Ed Ogeron hasn't proven to be that because he went out and again, maybe he lucked into that hire and didn't know exactly what he had until it came to fruition. But my guess is that Ed Ogeron is going to go 9-3 and 10-2 at LSU.
All right. Yeah, that's my guess too. Because, I mean, Joe Burrow was not anything special at all his first year at LSU. He was good, but was never going to do anything special.
No.
So, yeah, and he had everyone, the only non-common denominator from the 2018 to 19 was Joe Brady. So,
well,
I definitely think that hire made all the difference.
Yeah, you remember the game better than I do, the previous season in Baton Rouge, and that was a good LSU team. They finished 10-3. They finished like 7th in the country, but they couldn't sniff the end zone. They couldn't sniff field goal range against Alabama. They barely had 100 yards of total offense. Yes, it was awful. They could barely throw an outlet.
To watch them try to make first down.
Yes, with the same personnel, Terrace Marshall, Burrow, Edwards-Helaire, all those guys, Jamar Chase, all of them. Yeah. And the next year, they can't be stopped.
I think you and I are kind of in agreement on that. I don't think he's going to turn into a Gene Chizik where he caught Cam Newton, somehow got a national title, and then was fired 2 years later. But Les Miles did win a national title, and so if they go back to 9-3, 10-2, that's pretty much par for the course for LSU in the 2000s. So,
which is basically underachieving slightly, not by a ton. It's still a good record. It's still a good team that's going to finish fringe top 10, but they should be doing a little better than that.
They should. I mean, when you consider their location and the fact that they should have all the Louisiana recruits to themselves, theoretically, and they're right next to Texas. I mean, Mississippi's no good, but Alabama's only a 2-hour drive away. So recruiting-wise, fans passionate-wise, I mean, resources, the school's going to give them anything they want, monetarily-wise. Yeah, I mean, they should. LSU and Georgia, and quite frankly Florida, should be winning no less than 10 games a year. That's what I've always said. If they ever have a year where you don't win 10 games in the regular season, I need to clarify that, in the regular season, if any of those teams lose more than 2 games in the regular season, to me, they underachieved that year. Now, I'm not saying that's a complete catastrophic failure. Everyone underachieves sometimes, but none of those schools should ever be sniffing 8-4 for that matter, or really 9-3. Anyway, Mark. All right. Good talk with you.
Appreciate it.
That's all I got for today.
Okay. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
All right, our guy Reasonable Gump talking SEC football. Good stuff. If you love the SEC and you want to see more, check out our Voice of College Football SEC channel. So lock in on these channels, especially you could do us a huge, enormous favor by subscribing to that Michigan channel that's like 8 subscriptions away from 1,000. Need to get that thing to 1,000. That's key on YouTube. Get that channel to 1,000. But we've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, USC, an SEC channel, plus Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, Notre Dame, Miami, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State. So again, I would ask that if you're a fan of one of those teams, please subscribe to the channel. Full disclaimer here, I'm always transparent. You are basically going to get repurposed video that is here over there. But this is the reason you subscribe. Number one, you don't have to weed through all the other videos. You get just that particular team. Number two, it's divided in a way that you can go topic by topic, recruiting, quarterback battle, offensive line, coach, whatever the situation, the latest commit. And number three, that once we get that particular channel up and running, like we have at Ohio State, Miami, and some other channels, there will be exclusive content there. And actually, there already is on the Michigan channel, the Florida State channel, the Oklahoma channel, the SEC channel. We do have exclusive content that's only right there because we've come to agreements with podcasters and YouTubers on other channels that supply us with even additional content. So you don't have to just look at me all the time. All right. So again, please subscribe to your favorite team channel, or if you just want to help us, subscribe to those channels that are the closest to 1,000. Which would be Michigan, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Florida State in particular. So thank you for that. Get yourself a mask, your favorite team mask. They're good looking. Look at them. Check them out on voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. Get your free mask by registering for free. All you do is give us your name, your email. I send you a coupon code. Cheryl and others can vouch for me. I'm not going to clutter up your inbox with a bunch of garbage. Cheryl will vouch for me and others that you never get an email from me. Maybe when I start a newsletter again, you'll get one once a week during the football season, something like that, maybe. But so you're not going to get a ton of emails from us cluttering up your inbox. Just register for free to help us build the channel. We get you the coupon code. You get the free mask. You get the 20% off your first purchase if you choose to purchase something, and you get entered into a $25 gift card giveaway. Some people had commented on here, and I need to check in on this because we were having issues with coupon codes. And of course, just bear with me here a little bit. We just launched the site, so there's always a bunch of hiccups in doing this sort of thing. So we had a bunch of them. I had my last meeting on this just a few days ago, and hopefully we got this cleared up in regards to getting everyone the coupon code. So please register. Just be patient with us, and we'll get that cleared. But and let me know if you're not getting your coupon code, and I will double check on that tonight. All right. We're on Patreon, 16 cents a day. And the best way to contribute here directly is go to Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App and just search Mark Rogers TV, and you can contribute that way as well. Share the videos on social media. If you like the discussion, the debate, the analysis, other people will too. And I guarantee you that 90% of the people that follow you on Twitter or Facebook or other social media platforms have no idea who I am and don't know that we're here talking college football every day. We'll be back. We will be back tomorrow. Let's see. Tomorrow we've got a Notre Dame show we're cranking up. Notre Dame, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesday night. Otherwise, I've got plenty of spring practice videos coming your way, tons of breakdowns and analysis. And if you've got any kind of a request, please leave that in the comment section of any of the videos if you've got a request for any type of video that you would like to see. But I am working on ranking all the coaches across college football per conference, and then we'll get to the players after spring practice as well. All right. I have completed a breakdown of the ACC versus the Big Ten over the last 20 years. I did that because Khalil Young was on here one call-in show last week asking questions to have me compare the ACC and the Big Ten. And he was asking about last season, then he was asking about the last few years, and then his final ask was about the last 20 years. So I said, you know what, Khalil? You've contributed a lot here in the super chat. I'm going to produce a video. I'm going to compare the Big Ten and the ACC, the ACC and the Big Ten over the past 20 years. I looked at the AP top 25, the AP top 10. I looked at NFL players. I looked at head-to-head. I looked at championships, championship appearances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all right there. And of course, we're cranking out all sorts of team talk, position breakdowns, and previews for all sorts of teams. It's all there. You guys know what you get with me. I'm taking a YouTube workshop of sorts right now, and they're talking about getting enough content produced. You need to get out there and produce this much content, one video per week or whatever. I'm like, that's not my problem. It's not producing enough content. That has never been the problem. All right, let's see. Anything else on here? Nebraska. That's a good question. Did you check it out there, Nathaniel? Let's look this up. So I'm going to shut off the call-in line. So if nobody else wants to call me, going to shut this down. I'm going to check out the Nebraska mask situation there. Hang on, Nathaniel. Give me just a second. I got to shut down this call-in number. Oh man, this is tough to navigate. Hang on. Here we go. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Everybody with me. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Okay, let's look at the store here. So if you go to store, come on now. Why is this? It's right clicking for me, even though I'm hitting the left. There we go. Okay, let's go to face masks. Or you can just go to your team. Let's go to face masks. And I don't see it there. Hang on just a second. Let's go to that particular team. So if we go to Nebraska. There they are. Nebraska. I'd like to get that thing out of my way so I can see better. I don't see a Nebraska mask there. What am I looking at here? We've got you guys need to check the store out. See what's here. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Nebraska masks. I don't see one here. I used to have the complete list of what teams we had masks of, and it was about 35. So Nathaniel, based on my search here, I'm not finding any Nebraska masks either. Again, I believe we've got about 35 teams. Mississippi State, Florida State, Kentucky, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, and so forth. All right. Seth, Mark, are you looking forward to seeing what Norvell can do with Mackenzie Milton? Of course, absolutely. I am just looking forward to Mackenzie Milton staying on the field. I was outlining and posted a video on the SEC channel the other day, my top 10 SEC non-conference games for this year, and one was Florida State, and I said, if Mackenzie Milton is still taking snaps at Florida State on November 27th, that is going to be a great sign. Wait, is there shipping for the free mask? Do we know that, Rod? Really? I thought there wasn't. Let me look into that as well. So, Rod, are you telling me that there is shipping on the free mask? I didn't think there was. Let me see here. I don't know that for sure. I'm going to ask that, though. Okay. We should have Alabama masks. Yes, we've got everyone in the SEC except South Carolina, unless they ran out in the last few days. All right. All right. All right, folks. Good to see everyone. We will see you back here. Let's see. Next live stream is Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, talking Notre Dame football with you. Check out the videos. We'll see you soon.